going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 210. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him... Sitting here Thursday afternoon, rainy, Austin, Texas, getting started a little bit later than we intended to here on our Thursday. We are under attack by lawn crews. You get interrupted by leaf blowers the other day. We just had about a half hour of leaf blowers and lawn mowers, and I don't know, man. Maybe St. Louis doing a little subterfuge here, trying to destroy the North End Podcast, but we persevere, we move on, and we will preview that match against St. Louis City. We'll have last business day, all that good stuff, a little bit of the nonsense here on episode 210. But before we get into all of that, I'll ask you, as I always do, how you feeling, my friend?
Oh, I'm amped, man. I'm ready. I hate this St. Louis team. I fucking hate them. I have hated them for a long time, and I'm so ready for this game. Got my badass North End Pirates scarf on. What a fantastic scarf this is. So hopefully you can give us some good wuju here, but I know we're going to get into it, but this is a game we should win in my book. In my opinion, I think we should beat these guys. I think we're better than them. I think they're banged up right now, and I think that's going to really hurt them when they play us, but fuck them. I hate them.
Yep. Hey, and North End Pirates scarf, undefeated. So, maybe that is the key here to us going 32-2-0. And I know you will be on the road this weekend. Actually, some very cool, positive, personal stuff happening in the North End. We can talk about that down the road. But the place to be to watch this match, is going to be at Radio East over there off Montopolis. So the actual address there for this next Los Verdes watch party at Radio East, that's 3504 Montopolis Drive over there on the east side. The party is going to start at high noon here over at Radio East because we've got a 1:15 scheduled kickoff there in St. Louis. So your actual kickoff is going to be around 1:25, but all ages welcome at Radio East this Sunday for the Los Verdes watch party. There is free lot and parking on the side street there by Radio East as well, that is key, right? You got to get that free parking for the watch party. There will be some reserved seating on site there, but you can also bring your own chair if you're worried about not having a seat by the time you get there. There will be 3 food trucks on site as well. The Shortwave Diner, Tommy Want Wingy, which I think will be my choice there, and Veracruz, which actually that'll be a tough choice for me now that I'm reading it through. But all 3 of those trucks are expected to be open for the watch party, and there will also be another event happening that day over at Radio East. The Austin Witches Market will start at noon. So look, if we need any other wuju, right? If we need to go get something from the Witches Market to keep these lawn crews away from recording time here in the North End, I'll be taking a look around there at the Witches Market. But with all that's going on there on Sunday over at Radio East, this should be a blast. Another good watch party on paper, and we'll report back after the match on Sunday. But everybody head out there, Radio East off Montopolis, the Los Verdes watch party for the match against St. Louis City this weekend.
Hey, best fans in the league, baby.
Yes, sir. So before we get into the rest of today's episode, do want to remind you all, as we always do, that the best way to support the show, whether you're listening on the audio version or watching on our YouTube channel, the best way to support the show, you actually support us financially by downloading the audio versions of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. You can toggle on auto downloads. That supports the show, and you don't have to think about it again. You can go the extra mile, rate and review the show wherever you get your podcast, or if you are watching on the YouTube channel, hitting that subscribe button really helps us grow the show. And you can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, here on episode 210, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords and the lawn crews. Atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean. in the waters of the North End. Before we get into St. Louis here, I just wanted to clean up some of the international notes that we had while we were recording on Monday. Mirtu Izuni and Albania were taking on Andorra. I think I mentioned that Izuni was not in that lineup. If I didn't, he did not start against Andorra after playing the full 90 against England on Friday. They did not really need his services. Andorra, I believe, has one win since 2022 as a country there. So it was not going to come against Albania. And our guy, Mirtu, comes off the bench and scores the third of 3 goals for Albania there in second half stoppage time. So 2 first team international goals in one day for Austin FC. First team players with Jimmy earlier in the day. And speaking of Jimmy, I didn't see this. I read about it after the fact, because when that match went to halftime after Jimmy had scored, I turned off the stream, turned it back on a few minutes into the second half, and saw that Jimmy had been subbed off. I did not realize that he had been subbed off at the start of the half on a stretcher. So I did not see what happened there. I don't imagine it was too dire. Maybe felt a little bit of tightness. I'm kind of hoping it was like a little bit of tightness in that quad that had been bothering him about 6 weeks ago. But that's something to watch for maybe here with Coach Nico's press availability, what have you. But those 2 goals, we also got an Irvin Torres goal. I don't think we've mentioned that Irvin got the U18 US call up last week, but so congrats to Irvin. And he turns around and converts a goal, 4 goals, I think, that the US U18s scored in that match, I believe against the Norway U18s, if I'm not mistaken. But that's a hell of a week internationally. Probably, hands down, the best international break for Austin FC ever, right? I did see some folks saying that Jimmy's goal was the first national team goal in club history. And I think that's the case if we're talking competitive matches. But Julio did score against UAE in a friendly last year. So I kind of always counted that one, and then you could also probably mix in. I think Owen had a goal in the U20 World Cup. I know it's not first team level, but either way, it's a great weekend.
That is a fantastic showing for Austin FC at the international level there, and glad everyone stayed relatively healthy. Hopefully that Jimmy is, okay. Hoping it's just like some sort of cramping situation. He's fine, but what a great showing for the boys, and very happy to have them back.
Yes, absolutely. So having them back here this weekend on the road against St. Louis City SC, who, as you mentioned earlier, and I share your sentiments, we do not like this team.
Nope.
And honestly, I don't think St. Louis thinks twice about us, at least at this point in the history between the 2 clubs, but because it has been all St. Louis to this point, right? This is one of the 2 expansion teams that have come into the league since we joined in 2021. Of course, we saw the other in San Diego last weekend at Q2. But, in case you weren't a fan back in 2023, opening night against then expansion side St. Louis was kind of the beginning of the end of like the honeymoon period with the diehard fans and the club. Because at the time, we were all hoping and thinking that it was just a blip, a misstep to begin that season. And of course, maybe the biggest mistake in club history with Kipp Keller back passing to Jared Stroud, who was no longer a member of the team at that point. His first match with St. Louis ended up being 3-2 on that night. But again, since then, we do not have a victory in this series, and we should have April of last season, right? Up 2-1 in stoppage time at home against St. Louis. We bring on Brendan Heinzike as a third center back, taking off John Gallagher, which moved Ethan Finley to right back. And then I think was it Pompeu who scored that goal? Either way, equalizer from St. Louis in the 3rd minute of stoppage time that deflected off the inner thigh of Ethan Finley. So just supreme bad luck with that one. And then one of the 4 matches a month later, one of the 4 matches in the 2024 season where Austin managed no shots on target on the road. That came in May, 1-0 loss there in St. Louis. And of course the match, because there's only been 4, you can just list off all 4 results. 6-3 coming off of the Leagues Cup break in 2023. If you remember that one, maybe you had wiped it from your memory, as I had temporarily before doing our research leading up to this match. But man, this has just, again, coming off of the opening night 2023 disappointment, it just has not gotten better, and that has only fueled the hate that you have in your heart for the St. Louis team.
They killed Kipp Keller. I don't know. They killed Kipp Keller. I don't know what else to say. I hate this team, man. And they don't have much to show like us from their short-term run here and everything like that. So if they don't think about us twice, then I don't know how I feel about that. I dislike this team a lot. Like you said, that opening night loss back there in 2023. We're coming off the Western Conference Finals. We lost to a superior club in LAFC, and we had high hopes for that season. But if you look back on it, that was really like the beginning of the end for a lot of good things to fall apart. Vibes went through through the basement. We struggled out of the gate that season. You have that incredible mishap by Kippy there. And that ultimately, I don't think it was the ultimate decision in him not being with Austin FC anymore, but it definitely didn't help his tenure here to extend his career in Austin. But God, I hate this team. I hate João Klaus. I hate Edward Leuven. I hate Berkey. Pompeo is on my list now, even though he wasn't there for the first season, but I hate him. I hate Alm, who's not going to be around, but God, and they're a big, doofy looking team with just and João Klaus up front, man. It's just I hate him. He's a goon.
It's a lot of Germans.
Yeah, no, they are not an appetizing team. I hate this club, and I want to spank them. And I don't know how much, like we talked about the roster turnover and everything like that. And when you see these other leagues that we compare MLS to, you usually have, your top 8 teams that have very cemented rivalries and things like that. We obviously have our cemented rivalries here in Texas with Frisco and the Orange team. But this is a deep hatred for a club for me. And I don't know if that extends to our newer players who are probably like, where the hell is St. Louis? Look, I hope we're up for it. I think we're a better team on paper. I think we're a better team, and we're going to win this game.
Yeah, so before we get into kind of the nitty-gritty here, we're still early enough in the season, and the first time we see these, especially the Western Conference rivals, right, we want to do a little bit of digging on their club history, and there's not much to dig into, just 2 seasons worth, right? But the one thing that has kind of always bothered me, I guess, among the laundry list of things that bother you and I about this club here, that St. Louis City SC, they capitalize the word city. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to yell it or not. I'm not gonna, but that's kind of a silly gimmick to me. And jokes aside, St. Louis has been a vibrant soccer community for decades, right? Going back to last century, from what I can find, but they've danced around MLS expansion for about 15 years, leading up to them actually getting the successful bid in 2019. And this is something I didn't know until doing research for this week's article, is that the ownership group for St. Louis City is led by Carolyn Kendall Betts, who her and other members of the Taylor family, they are the owners of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, right? So Betts' grandfather was Jack Taylor. And so in addition to being the CEO of the club, Betts is also the president of Enterprise Holdings Foundation, which is the charitable arm of Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And St. Louis City is the first female majority-owned team in the league. So another unique ownership story here with our opponents this coming Sunday. Sporting director, Lutz Pfannenstiel, who's hired in 2020. He is a character. Like, if you can go back and listen to any interviews with him, I remember listening to multiple appearances by Pfannenstiel leading up to the 2023 season. He's pretty entertaining. Their first coach was Bradley Carnell, who was a former assistant with New York Red Bulls. He was hired in 2022, the fall before they began play. And so, again, coming over from Red Bulls, right? Like, he brought his own version of that energy drink soccer, right? Mm-hmm. High pressing for the full 90, going very, very direct when they have the ball. It's a lot of chaos there from what we knew through the first 2 seasons of St. Louis. And look, it wasn't just us being disappointed on opening night, right? They set the record by reeling off 5 straight wins to begin their expansion season. That was a league record. They set the league record for an expansion team in terms of number of wins on a season. They had 17 that year, and that was good enough to secure the top seed headed into the 2023 playoffs, as obviously Austin FC tanked and missed the playoffs that year. But even though they got the top seed, folks were already kind of the media types were already trying to poke holes because they were overperforming their underlying numbers, their expected goals and goals conceded. And then they see their biggest, I think their fans would consider Sporting KC their biggest rival, certainly geographically. And Sporting KC sneaks in as the 8th seed and upsets them in that first round best of 3 series and didn't even have to go to game 3. Just boom, boom, win, win, and you knock out the 1 seed expansion side. And then similar to us, after we bowed out of our lone playoff run in 2022, they took a nosedive last year, man. Playing against Austin were some of the only bright spots for this club. Last season, they won just 3 of their first 20 matches, and then they gave Carnell the boot on July 1st of last year. So they ran with an interim the rest of the season. But one of the biggest change to this club to me was not just the coach, but the work that Fan and Steel did in the summer transfer window last year. Added new designated player, Marcel Hartel, now a 29-year-old German midfielder. He had stops with FC St. Pauli, where he helped that club get promoted from Bundesliga 2 to the Bundesliga, FC Köln, Union Berlin, and Arminia Bielefeld. And then they also added a TAM midfielder, another German, Cedric Teuchert, 28-year-old midfielder, came over on a free transfer from Hannover 96 in the German second division. He had 28 goals and 9 assists across his 73 matches with Hannover. He and Hartel both came over on free transfers, but it wasn't just the international market that St. Louis was working with. They brought Simon Betcher back stateside, right? He was a former St. Louis University player there. And speaking of the soccer community in St. Louis University is a big part of that. Kipp Keller was also a graduate of SLU. But Betcher was the 16th overall pick in the 2022 draft by the Whitecaps. Ended up doing very, very well in Next Pro, signing a first-team deal, and then being sold to Danish club AC Horsens, where they then loaned him back to St. Louis last summer. And that loan, I think, is through this season with a purchase option in 2026. So they bring Betcher back, so you get 3 guys in the attack, just completely turning that attack on its head, infusing it with a lot of talent. And then they traded Tim Parker, who you'll remember is the first goal scorer that night right there in front of us in the North. And they traded him to New England along with $600K in GAM for center back Henry Kessler. So upgrade there on the back line. So with the infusion of talent there, they won 4 of their last 8 matches, and that really gave their fans a lot of hope and built the hype leading up to this season, where they did in the offseason. Didn't make as many player personnel moves because of the work they did in the summer. I would say 2 of the acquisitions this past window that are notable. First, Timo Baumgartel, who, again, stop me if you've heard this before. We've got more Germans coming in. And so Timo, 29-year-old center back, spent time with FC Schalke 04, Union Berlin, PSV, VfB Stuttgart, 140 appearances across the top divisions of German and Dutch football. And one thing that is interesting about Baumgartel's story here, in 2022, while he was playing for Union Berlin, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer and was treated successfully, missed 5 months and came back to play. So just a big time hurdle in the middle of the prime of your career there. And to continue playing at the high level he has, good on him. They also signed former Norwegian youth international Konrad Wallum on loan from Slavia Prague in the Czech First Division. And Wallum has slotted in as a left wing back here for St. Louis, starting 4 of their first 5 matches. Baumgartel has dealt with injuries, but he did play 90 for the St. Louis second team last weekend. So I would expect to see him at least available off the bench here on Sunday. I mentioned wing back there with Wallum, and that's because Olaf Melberg is the new head coach here, hired in November of last year to be the second head coach in franchise history here. I'm undereducated when it comes to the global game, so a little bit about Melberg. The Rock of the Aston Villa back line from 2001 to 2008 in the Premier League before moving on to stints with Juventus, Olympiacos, Villarreal, and Copenhagen. He also had 117 caps for the Swedish national team from 2000 to 2012. And so the big changes that Melberg has brought, I think, number one, not going to high press like the Carnell teams of the first 2 years. And you can see a lot of that in there. This is a stat that we're going to be integrating into our analysis here going forward. The average height of defensive actions, which is, again, the average height of the defensive action away from your own goal line. So on a game-to-game basis and integrating that into a rolling average on the season, you can see how teams defended, again, on a game-to-game basis or overall on the season. And I think it is telling that their average height of defensive actions is sitting at 35.37 meters away from their own goal line. Austin's is at 35.03. And we know we have not done a ton of pressing after seeing a fair bit of it on opening night against Sporting. So again, just to illustrate that this team is treating things completely differently without the ball compared to the first 2 seasons. And then they also shift formations. This is one thing that was expected with Melberg's hire, as he loves to play the 3-4-2-1 look here. So you get 3 center backs, 3 true center backs at the back with wing backs on either side. And that's why I mentioned Wallen playing on that left side as a wing back. So lots of changes here for St. Louis. And again, some of those names that we love to hate are out of there, and some of them have remained.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really interesting with this club, right? Like when we were keeping an eye on them before they had their inaugural season, and we're looking at the signings they're making, and they got those Bundesliga guys kind of locked in, bringing them in and everything. You get Carnell in there, coming from Red Bull, like you said, energy drink soccer. I don't know if you came up with that, but that is fantastic.
No. I cannot take any sort of credit for that.
That is really good.
Comes from the Red Bull system.
Okay, I like that a lot. And they played this frantic, kind of ugly style. And as Austin fans who are very familiar with some ugly football, St. Louis played ugly football that year, and they found a way to make it work that season. They have that fantastic Cinderella kind of story. You get knocked out, and then you have an awful season last year, and then they just do this complete 180, right? And you look at the roster now, you mentioned these new guys that they brought in and everything like that, but there isn't a whole lot of speed, in my opinion, on this roster, which makes it interesting to me that they want to play this counterattacking style. Sitting on 4 goals this season, I think defensively, obviously, that's the strongest point of this club, only conceding 1 goal the entire year so far. So it is an interesting kind of case study to look at how drastically they switched their tactics and how they wanted to play this. And now you see Carnell over there in Philadelphia having a ton of success with that roster, playing really well over there. So it's interesting to me. And I think, a lot of leagues are copycat leagues, right? You see the teams at the top who are being successful, your LAFCs, categories like that. And you're seeing a lot of hires and strategies shift towards, we're going to sit back a little bit and then we're going to hit you on the counter. That's how they want to play. You look at their team stats overall for this year, and it's just really hard to determine what they do well outside of the defensive side of the ball, where they're compact and, not giving up a ton of good looks, as you can see with the 1 goal. You could pair that eventually with Berkey getting healthy, and that feels even better because he is definitely one of the best keepers in the league. I hate him, but I will give him his props here for how talented he is. So I haven't had a chance to watch this team yet this season because, as I said, I hate them. I don't want to watch them play. But I think where I'm looking at is how we're going to approach this. And we saw this drastic change with Nico on the last game and everything, and how we played the lineup looking so starkly different from what we had been playing. And I'm not entirely sure how we're going to approach this, but I'm ready to talk through it with you.
Yeah. Well, the other things that I would note, like you mentioned, they've only given up 1 goal, right? And that's got to be, I did do some reconnaissance on some St. Louis City pods here. They're definitely concerned with their lack of offensive output, and
Mhm.
clearly that's fair. Whether you're, just looking on paper or you're watching these matches, like the match that I've seen of them this season was their 3-0 road win over LA Galaxy. They were able to break them down as that match wore on, but defensively, one goal conceded is best in MLS so
Mhm.
far. I believe we are second with 3, and we're tied with one other team. That team is escaping me right now. But for a team that allowed 63 goals in 34 league matches last season to only give up 1 through 5, like they're definitely feeling good about that. And I thought it
Mhm.
was a good point by you. Like it's hard to tell what exactly they're doing well outside of limiting high probability chances for their opponents. And they've done that through a schedule of teams like Colorado, San Diego, the Galaxy, the Sounders, the Union, right? You've got some of the kind of bottom feeder teams right now in there, especially with the Galaxy. But
Mhm.
then Seattle, victory at home 1-0. I know they were shorthanded and rotated, but still, we know what those teenagers can do when they roll out their backups there in Seattle. And then the 1-0 loss on the road against Philly last week, who has been scorching hot to start the season. That was,
Yeah.
they picked up the red card from Leuven. So this is a team that I think is similar to Austin in the sense that they've been able to kind of scrap out some of these results where it doesn't look pretty on paper or even necessarily watching it, but they are getting the results. Again, sitting on 8 points last week, similar to San Diego, was their first loss. And it was just the 1-0 shorthanded there on the road. So I don't want to sit here and look at this team and say, oh, this is a definite win.
Yeah.
But so, you mentioned Roman Berkey, fractured hand. He has been, I think, over the last 2 seasons, it's very fair to say that he's been the best keeper in the
Yeah.
league. He led MLS in 2023 in post shot XG plus minus and was second only to Christian Kalina from Charlotte last year. So, like, he has been at the top of all of the top shot stopping metrics that we have on hand right now. And then to miss Edward Leuven, who is the
Huge.
engine
Yep.
to everything they do offensively. Like he's the guy that will be, when healthy or when not suspended, trying to release those attacking players on the counter. So the fact that he is suspended this week, like that is an extra bonus that I will absolutely accept. Shouldn't have
Yeah.
got that second yellow kicking the ball away.
Don't be an idiot, man. You look at this. You look at their XG conceded on FOTMob. It's at 5, and you've only given up 1 goal this year, so they're outperforming that quite a bit. Like you said there with Leuven, the guy who distributes. We know. Well, we do need to update the people on how long this João Klaus drought
Dude,
is, but
it's
like
incredible
it's great.
in a bad
It's been
way.
yeah, it's great for us, but like with no Leuven too, that is the guy who takes their set pieces, who
Yep.
has fantastic service into the box off of corners, off of wide positions. We know João Klaus is a large target, so this is a huge ding to this team to lose this guy. Again, someone I hate, but also respect because he is a good player. Also, a very physically imposing player there in
Yeah.
that midfield. Very, very hard to dispossess him when he's on the ball because he uses his body really well, like a shield. So this St. Louis team is banged up. They're missing some super key, important pieces. But I will say, difficult place to play there in St. Louis. Raucous crowd. They're really into it. They get up for those games. And I know we're going to be walking into the Lions' den here
Yeah.
when we go to face them.
Well, and so to piggyback off the talk about how many guys they're missing, like we mentioned Berkey and Leuven, but Tomas Totland is expected to miss this game. Rasmus Alm is expected to miss
Mm-hmm.
this game. Some other guys down the roster that are not necessarily big first team players, but Michael Wenzel, Jay Reed, Jake Girdwood Reich, excuse me. Germans everywhere.
Everywhere.
And to your point about Klaus, dude, like he scored the lone goal against us at their place in May of last year or late April, whenever it was. But his last goal scored, I think, was May 11th, 2024. 21 straight, and he's had some injury issues, but
Yep.
21 straight appearances for this team without a goal. DP striker, like, dude, I'm pretty sure that's way worse than any streak that Giassi Zardes ever had for us. 21 games without a goal. Like, I don't think G touched that. So, like, this is with Klaus, maybe one of the most frustrating designated players stretches right now in the league currently. And I know, like, I'm going to knock on all the wood in sight here. If he gets it going against us, I'm going to be pissed.
Oh, God. That would be absolutely infuriating. And, like we talked about with this huge drastic change that this team has made, we see this early success here for this team.
Mm-hmm.
But as we know, there's a lot. It's all tight. It's all jumbled right now. You can get a little bit of separation here if you can go ahead and get 3 points on the road. But like with João Klaus, right, you come into this team, you come into this organization, you're playing this high pressing style. He's very much involved in that. Another big guy who was a solid press player, in my opinion, because he could kind of extend out wide on guys and get a solid press for their team. But now he's playing a different type of role, in my opinion. And I think that might be leading to some of his struggles and frustration. I'm not entirely sure, but we will absolutely take it. And I swear to God, if this dude scores on us, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be mad as hell.
Yeah, so this is a 2-4 roster build there, 2.6 million in GAM available, right? They get the extra 2 million that has to be used this season because of their 2-4 GAM build. Hartel and Klaus are the two DPs. They've got 2 of their 4 U22 slots filled, Chris Durkin and Jake Girdwood-Reich. 6 TAM players on this roster: Berkey, Kessler, Leuven, Joachim Nilsson, Thomas Ostrak, and Cedric Teuchert. And then again, like, this is a team that has filled out their supplemental roster, has signed more homegrown players than Austin has, even in just their 2 years of existence. Like, we'll talk about a guy like Mikey Joyner later as one of their off-roster homegrowns that plays with their second team. It's just, again, I enjoy looking at these different types of roster builds and seeing where these other clubs are at, especially one that started so close to when we did.
Yeah, I mean, look, in their short period of time here, they've done a good job. They really have. That one season, obviously, where they were pretty bad, led to Cardinals firing and everything like that, but they have done a solid job there, but I still hate them.
Let's talk about us then. I know I led us back through like 10 more minutes of St. Louis talk there as you tried to move on to everybody's favorite team. So finally, let's talk about it. I'm still going to ask you, and I'm going to give my opinion here on, like, what do we think Nico and his staff are going to do strategically here on both sides of the ball? Like, the variation that we've seen through the first 5 matches, I feel like the only way we could be confident about predicting what we're going to see tactically on Sunday is, like, if we accidentally got added to the coaches group chat or some shit like that. I do think that St. Louis is going to continue to try to sit back in their low block and counter. And my best guess is that we're going to accept their invitation to play with the ball here, especially if Julio is ready to start and go 90 this week, because getting him back there in that back line, reinfusing Mirtu Azuni into this attack and being able to exchange some of the pieces in the midfield or on the wing that we've seen coach do. Like, I think we want to take it to this team and try to beat their strategy of limiting us to low probability chances, because I feel like their buildup is going to be severely hampered with the Leuven absence. And having Ben Lunt in goal instead of Roman Berkey, as good as Lunt was against Philly, 8 saves, like, it was a fantastic performance by the backup. Having him back there instead of Berkey is a clear downgrade. You could put Stuver in there, and, like, technically it's probably a slight downgrade because of how good, like, that is credit to Berkey and not a knock to either Stuver or Ben Lunt. But I think we should be willing and able to play with the ball here and be the aggressors and break down this defense. Like, I do think they're going to regress to the mean here, because giving up 1 goal is just, like, they do have a little bit of luck over these first 5 games defensively.
For sure. As can be seen by their XG conceded potentially. But look, man, I would not be surprised to see this box midfield again. I just
Okay.
don't see how you can really argue with the results that we were getting, the looks that we were getting BV into space, his big body, his ability to not only shield off center backs who are large, but to utilize his speed to get us out into space, I think is very much in play. It could be a bit more of a blend, in my opinion, not necessarily leaning in too far to the, we're going to just give you the ball from our side of the
Mm-hmm.
thing
Mm-hmm.
and counter on you, as opposed to we're going to try to have this ball for like 70% of the possession here and everything like that. It could be a bit more of a blend, but like when you look at the speed difference that I think we possess over this St. Louis club, I think capitalizing on those balls into space, behind players, through balls to guys, let guys run onto, might be the strategy that we're going to see here. And like that box midfield looked great, man. And I think that at least gives us guys who I feel confident
Mm-hmm.
with the ball at their foot. Like I feel confident with
Sure.
Ilya at the ball at his feet. I feel confident with Sabo having it. I feel very confident with Owen having it. And like looking back and like kind of taking all and digesting that game versus San Diego in its entirety, I do think the support that those three guys provided Danny allowed him to be a bit better on the offensive side of the ball. You saw
Mm-hmm.
some really nice progressive passes from him. So I would not be shocked if you see this again, because they don't want to play with the ball either. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
we can make them a bit uncomfortable and be like, yeah, well, we'll sit back as well and then hit you guys on this counter. And I just liked the way that it looked. And now when you have a Zuni back here, if you can potentially get him and Buka paired up in some sort of lineup situation here, I don't know if Buka is going to get this start. I don't know how the coaching staff feels about him right
Mm-hmm.
now. I don't
Right.
know if they feel confident in his
Yeah.
ability to provide something positive for us.
And what was
Um,
their assessment of his performance last
yes,
week? Because there's such amongst the fans, I feel like there's such a disagreement, right, on how we viewed what he did against San Diego last week.
yes, absolutely. And like the opportunities presented themselves. But
Mm-hmm.
again, it was the decision-making stuff. So I think, you know, when we did our rewatches and we went back and you're actually able to kind of like, you know, break down the film a little bit there was a lot of good things that Buka did
Mm-hmm.
in that game, and the opportunities that he created for us, we weren't able to capitalize on. But I will be super satisfied with 5 or 6 big chances like we had versus
Yeah.
San Diego if we're scoring 2 goals and winning games and stuff like that. So I do think that this box midfield is very much in play here from what
Mm-hmm.
we saw, because San Diego, a bit similar style to St. Louis, didn't want to play with the ball a lot either, a whole
Mm-hmm.
bunch. I'm interested, but I have a lot of confidence in this coaching staff and what Nico wants to do here.
Yeah. I think I'm I think I'm less confident in seeing the box midfield again because I think that was kind of double sided in the sense of like we were trying to play very directly up on the counter through the middle and take advantage of. I think that's the difference to me between what San Diego especially ran out there last week shorthanded on their back line, which is already slow,
Mm-hmm.
compared to what St. Louis has working here in their back line, a little bit more athletic, a little bit more physical. I like I said to start this part of the episode, like we could see any of that, and
Yeah,
I'm not shocked. But I think for
absolutely.
me, if we're going to have the ball, if that's how we think this game is going to play out, then not only to me is it important to get Julio out there on our back line if he's able to go physically, but to get Bukari out there as well. Like
Yeah,
we need the most dangerous attack. If we're gonna have the ball, maybe 60% of this game, um, I want to see him out there, right? Mistakes or not. He is
yeah,
one of the most talented players we have, especially going forward. And he's going to be the one. Even coming off the bench last week, like you look at his progressive carries and his chances created and things like that, like he is still an elite player offensively for us. And I think those counting stats will follow once the minutes do. Like maybe he does not get back into the 11 to begin this one. Um, but the
uh,
biggest question is if he comes back in, who goes out, right?
yeah.
I think you're not going to bench the captain.
Nope,
You're not going to bench Owen Wolf for
nope,
almost anything right now, I think.
nope.
Um,
I don't think you can bench Sabo.
I agree. And so I think Danny
It's
might be the
yeah,
odd one out here. And like, could we see then Mirtu Izuni play more of a role on the wing. If we don't go 4-4-2 in the build-up, right, and playing Owen more on the left with Buka on the right, and Owen as a winger there, like, could we go more 4-3-3 or 4-2-1-3, what have you, right, with Owen kind of playing as a 10? I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Again, add us to the group chat, Nico. But again, we could see so many things. I feel like we are going to orient more offensively to start this match.
And I think that's a good idea because
Mm-hmm.
the thing that was running through my mind there is that they don't have any guys on the wings that I respect the way I respected your Buwangas, your Dryers, guys that we
Right.
need to have double teams on. If Leuven was in play here, I would have been fine with a lot of attention being on him. But the fact that they are just lacking so much firepower right now with Leuven out, we understand they got the 4 goals. We are also sitting on the 4 as well. But I think you want to come out offensively aggressive. And I think, the strategy that box midfield was showing us was that those long balls into space, playing guys, and to your point, Buka, we're all winning on more goals.
Mm-hmm.
And that is overshadowing the things he does well for this team. It is overshadowing the progressive passes, the touches inside the box, all of these things that he does really well. So with more time, hopefully those goals will come. But I think being offensively minded here is a really smart idea because, again, they don't have one of those guys where it just strikes fear into your heart, particularly with Leuven out of this game on suspension, where it's like, this guy deserves a double. We got to be on top of him the entire game, which I think opens up a lot of opportunities because we saw in that LAFC game, particularly that double coming from Owen to get there with Johnny to be on Denny and everything like that. And I think in this situation, that is not called for and really not needed. And we know from everything we've heard out of this coaching staff and the players as well, one of the things that has been a focus point, a very, very definitive point that we want to be good at is having each other's backs. And if you're lined up in man-to-man, man-to-man situations, one-on-one type of situations, and you have that support, it allows you to be more aggressive approaching that player. So, like, I don't respect the players that they have on the attacking side of the ball right now. And I don't think we need to take into account them too much.
Sure. At least relative to some, like you said, some of those really high caliber options that we faced over the first month and change.
I mean, I was more afraid of I was more afraid of Jovic than anyone that they have. Like you can go. I was probably more afraid of Da Costa than I think anyone that they have. Leuven does things really well, but he's not. I'm going to cook you by myself right now
for sure.
And go ahead and get somebody the ball or put something on net. So they're solid defensively. But I think this is the game that they're going to learn that we got a lot of speed and we got a lot of firepower on the offensive side of the ball. It hasn't shown itself in the result of a lot of goals, but it is there.
Well, I think as we kind of close out this preview, again, the written match preview article going up early Friday morning here at the northendpodcast.com. So you can go read that on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday leading up to this match. You mentioned right there, their XG, right? They've only conceded 1, but the XG against is 5.2, I believe, right? Which is like almost middle third in the league. So like that regression is coming. And of course, for our fandom, what better team to do it than Austin FC? But like, I also think like looking at their schedule, man, like who have they seen that's more dangerous than us? Like, it ain't Colorado's attack, right? And again, I know we haven't lit the world on fire, but the talent on paper with BV and Izuni and Buka and how Owen's playing, right? And I mean, Colorado, San Diego, no. Galaxy at this point, no.
Nope. Seattle's banged
Seattle
up
when they with exactly. Philly, not last week. No Gazdag, no Baribo.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't think they have seen something like this before coming at them, and that's another reason why I want to see the DP3 out there for sure.
Okay, I like that, and I'm in for the Buka start. I know that I've been critical of his play and everything, and disappointed in some of the things that he's done in regard to his decision making. But I do understand the underlying stuff that he's doing well. For context, Austin sitting at about 3.8 XG conceded with 3 goals conceded. So you look at that gap, 5.2 to 1, 3.8 to 3, and you can see that this team is due to give up some goals. And like you said, hats off to their keeper Lunt, right?
Lunt,
for his play so far. Like, definitely a hats off. You're not as good as Roman Berkey. I don't care how well
Yep.
you're playing. Like it's just a fact. So fuck these guys. I hate this team. I remember someone was in our comments talking about like rivals and finally listed St. Louis, and I was like, yes, thank God. Like this is a team I actually despise outside of
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the one last thing I'll mention, I think I said it in the opening talking about the watch party, but weather could be a factor here. Scattered thunderstorms in the forecast. So you just wherever you're going to the watch party, you're watching at home, you're doing whatever, just keep in mind, maybe check that weather forecast in the hours leading up to the match. Could have some rain delays here, which could affect first team and second team matches because the second team plays at the same stadium about an hour and 20 minutes, I believe, after the first team finishes. So anything else for you here, E? Go ahead.
Raining in St. Louis, not in Austin. Are you saying the okay? I thought you were saying the watch party. You might want to bring like an umbrella.
Oh no. To be honest, I don't think I've checked the Austin weather, but look, weatherman.
Hey,
beautiful weather on Sunday. Look,
it's done.
I got the feeling.
You're welcome.
All right, E. One thing left to do here. How much is Austin FC winning by on Sunday?
2-0 and a whooping. You know, a dominating performance.
Yeah. Not scoreline, not indicative of how dominant it was. That's how I feel like the San Diego match was, really, with that 2-1.
Yes.
Again,
yes. You're fortunate deflection goal. We're not going to be giving up a lot of those again. You have the DaCosta flopping goal. You know, like these things happen to us. They have not happened to St. Louis yet.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm going to go 2-1 here. Again, just kind of building in the idea that at their place, maybe with a wet pitch out there, that something could go haywire, but Austin still gets it done. So 2-0 for me, or 2-0 for E, excuse me. 2-1 for me. We don't care how you get it done, boys. Just bring us home the 3 points.
Come on down to Farmer Field where the champions play. Get ready for the game. It's last business day.
Last business day here on episode 210 of the North End Podcast. And E, this is a signing that we did not touch on Monday. Wanted to wait for last business day here on our Thursday episode. We have another acquisition here by the second team midfielder, Jaka Barro, coming over to us from Spain. Shocker, given our second team international acquisitions since Roto arrived. But Barro has been added on a contract guaranteed through 2026 with a team option for 2027. And you can see here on the screen, or if you're reading the press release at home, Barro's 23 years old, originally from Cote d'Ivoire, right? So Ivory Coast there, moved to Spain to join the academy of La Liga side. CD Yaganes, as a young player, joined Cartagena B on loan in 2021, signed permanently with Cartagena B summer 2022. After 2 seasons playing there, his performances earned him 5 appearances with Cartagena's first team, so 3 in La Liga 2 and 2 in the Copa del Rey before joining Mallorca B in the summer of 2024. 22 appearances for Mallorca before arriving here with FCito on a free transfer. So maybe we see Jaka out there on Sunday, or at least active on the bench. But our latest addition here, I'm interested to see him play whenever he can get out there for the second team.
I'm definitely interested to see him play. This is an interesting profile he has here. Cote d'Ivoire, I love their players. My favorite player ever, Didier Drogba. Representing there. I like the style that they play. Very aggressive, and then you see some names that you can recognize. You know,
for sure.
in those appearances there. So welcome, and let's get this thing. Like they're still filling out this roster here at the FCito level, and I'm excited to see these players we have coming in here. So hopefully he can come in here and contribute.
Yeah, and if he can make some contributions this Sunday, FCito certainly going to need it, because St. Louis City 2 through 3 weeks is the number 1 team in MLS Next Pro, 1 seed in the West. Goal differential 6-0 so far.
Ooh.
They defeated defending Next Pro champions North Texas SC 3-0 up there in DFW. So
Ooh.
like starting the season with a bang, and then they have actually played Sporting 2 twice already, a 1-0 road victory and then a 2-0 home victory over weeks 2 and 3 of the season. Again, if you recall when I was talking about Timo Baumgartel, he was on the back line for St. Louis 2 here for that home win over Sporting. So hopefully he's not out there again for the second team and just on the bench for the first team. But this is going to be a challenge no matter what. A name that you may recognize, Brendan McSorley, absolutely killed us last year. I believe had the winner for St. Louis in both matches against Austin FC2 last season, if I recall correctly. May have just been an equalizer at home, but either way, I don't like that kid because
Nope.
he has celebrated very heartily against my favorite team over the years. And then I mentioned Mikey Joyner earlier. He's weighing 59 here. He's one of the off-roster first-team homegrown players that is playing with St. Louis City 2. He's got 2 goals. That's leading their team so far on the young season. So number 80, McSorley, number 59, Joyner, 2 of the guys to watch, especially in possession here for City 2. And then talking about us, right? We're coming off a bye week, so should be able to get healthy here. Like maybe we see Jorge Alistue come back after he was held out of the second match after that just dirty fucking tackle against the Rapids. We've got Jacobaro in the mix here, right? We have a couple other names that we haven't seen a ton out of yet, right? Pat Krzyzewski has made 2 bench appearances so far. We've seen some of those amateur guys, Mo Badawia. I don't think we've seen Santi Mainez yet this season. But, we should also get, I guess, what's the story on Jimmy, too? Is he going to be available for this match? Hopefully it was just like a cramp or like you felt a little bit of tightness there and that he's ready to go. I imagine CJ still going to be with the first team, right? He seems like a guy that Nico is more than willing to throw on at the end of some of these matches. We saw Deanda start on the wing after subbing in on the wing in week 1, so that's very interesting to watch. I'm excited for this one, man. It's going to be a Sunday full of Austin FC, so hopefully we can do the double out there in St. Louis. Like taking 2 wins from this club on the same day would be the start of hopefully a long-term reversal of fortune in this matchup.
A good way to get that thing started. And I mean, the burning question for me is Jimmy, right? He's our best player at the FC Toe level. I don't think it's particularly super close. Micah has had a slow start. Irvin as well, super talented. Both those guys.
But if you also factor in the international goal, you just like Jimmy's on fucking fire.
He's on fire right now. Yeah, he's definitely on fire. So that's the burning question for me. I think he's the thing that makes everything go for us on the offensive side of the ball. What you mentioned there with Alistue, hopefully getting him back healthy because we saw the impact that he had on that first game that he was in there. So correct me if I'm wrong, but St. Louis City's had some pretty solid success in their 3 years at the FC level. Yes. Yeah, or they're 2 years in them and they're good start now.
Yes, absolutely. I believe have made the next pro playoffs both years so far here. And obviously very, very strong to start this season, even in the small sample size. Aggregate 6-0 after the 3-0 thrashing of the defending champions. We'll look more. Maybe North Texas had a big exodus of some of their players like we did after winning the title, but we'll find out more as this season progresses. How much do you think FC Toe is winning by here on Sunday?
I'll go 1-1 draw, win in PKs.
Okay, nice. We'll take the 2 points coming home. I'm going to go 1-0. I'm going to say we get a goal and we stand strong defensively here on the road. So I'll get all 3 points. 1-1 draw and a PK shootout win for E, 1-0 win for me. Don't care how you get it done, boys. Just bring us home the 3 points. And a little bit of Academy news here this week, E. One of our favorite events of the year is coming up in April 12th through 20th. The GA Cup 2025 will take place down there in Florida. Of course, the U15s for Austin FC took it all in 2023, winning the GA Cup tournament 2 years ago. So we've got some of those players filtering through up to the U18 and U16 levels, which are the only 2 youth levels that will be represented at this year's GA Cup. So we've got our groups here. The U16s group consists of New York City FC, Inter Miami, and VfB Stuttgart. This tournament this year has 80 teams split evenly between U16s and U18s, representing 14 different countries across 4 continents. So you get Stuttgart there in the U16s group, and then the U18s, Charlotte, LA Galaxy, and Independiente from Panama. So going to be very fun out there April 12th through 20th. We will get official match times and a streaming schedule. Hopefully we get one of each of our boys here, U16s and U18s streamed in the group stage. But once that schedule comes out, we will touch on it here on the North End.
What a fun event, man. Good luck to the boys.
Yeah, absolutely. So closing out episode 210 with a little bit of the nonsense here, E. And it's, look, when we do this well, we're going to brag about it for a couple minutes. So checking in on the Verde Best Ball League. You remember last week we tied for the week 4 win with We Are Austin. And so here in week 5, our friends at We Are Austin do keep that top spot. They have 47 points on the week. Very strong start from We Are Austin. And Hernan, I think, has made some hires in the war room. Again, this team is hot to start the year. We go back to back. Yeah, we go back to back, winning week 5, 53 points. We're now just 3 points back of defending champion Verde all day there, sitting on 229, and We Are Austin up top with 240. International break was not kind to Moon Tower or soccer-wise, so we now have, here through 5 weeks, kind of a group of 3 at the top and a group of 3 at the bottom, where the Verde Pendant puts up 37 on the international break, so they kind of show a little bit of life, trying to climb back into contention with Moon Tower and soccer-wise there in the bottom half, but we're 13% of the way through the year here.
Long way to go.
Long way to go, and about 5 or 6 weeks out from our first of 2 transfer window drafts here in the 2025 Verde Best Ball League. But we're trying to go for the back-to-back-to-back here in week 6, and you have a big enough week here, man. We're in striking distance from jumping up to 1 or 2 in the table here.
Would be fun to see. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, we will see how it plays out. And we will also see how the week 6 picks play out here. If you want to tail some of these picks are always posted on Saturday mornings at thenorthendpodcast.com. And if you tailed last week, if you tailed on Underdog, by far our worst week with the Underdog entry here. Christian Benteke comes up short. Cengiz Under comes up short. I believe we got Musa to cash the higher than 2.5 shots attempted, but the entry comes up short. So we're now just plus 5.96 units on the season on Underdog. So we will, of course, have our Underdog entry of the week in the week 6 article. And before we talk about the picks, just want to remind everybody, you go sign up at Underdog Fantasy. The MLS season is here. If you want to make some picks on your favorite players in sports, check out Underdog Fantasy's Pick'em game. You choose higher or lower on between 2 to 8 players, and you can win up to 1,000 times your entry. Underdog is available in 33 states, including right here in Texas. To sign up, click the link in the description of this video and use promo code NORTHEND at sign up, and you'll get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick to get you started. So join the millions of fans who have won billions on Underdog. Promo code NORTHEND at sign up. You can sign up using the link in the description of this episode, whether you're watching on the YouTube channel or listening on the audio version. You click that link, promo code NORTHEND at sign up, you get the bonus cash, you get the free pick. Then you come back to the northendpodcast.com on Saturday morning. You check out what we've got here for the week 6 picks. Sometimes I forget, E, to change the week number there. So this says week 4 picks on the week 5 article. These were indeed the week 5 picks. And E, plus 7 units. You hit the parlay. Nashville to win. Cincy Atlanta over 2.5 plus 170. LAFC to win plus 150. Austin FC to win, even odds. Then from the goal scorers, you get goals from David Martinez at plus 300 and Brandon Vasquez at plus 150. And then to score or give assists, Evander minus 125. Owen Wolf plus 200. So plus 7 units on the week. That brings us to an even plus 10 on the season. So if you have tailed every pick from the Underdog picks and the bets, you are up 15.96 units, and that feels pretty good.
We still got to find this person who tails every pick and let them know that they owe us money. You owe us money.
All right, man. Anything else for you here before we shut it down?
Fuck St. Louis. Say it with
I
my
second
chest.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I second that. All right, we will be back once again because of the Sunday matches. We will be back on Monday recapping Austin FC's franchise trip with the first team and the second team out to St. Louis on Sunday. So next week again, Monday and Thursday before we get back on the normal schedule. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. We'll do the same. We'll see you out there at the watch party on Sunday and back here on Monday for another episode of the North End Podcast. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.